let's get started. I think we have a full house. Thank you everyone for joining us for Virgil's first global onboarding party. On this webinar, we are going to walk you through what Virgil does, what our SDKs do, what can you do with our stuff, and then we'll help you make the first step to get and use your account. That's the plan. Dennis, how does it sound? Is it aligned with what we are trying to achieve today?
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I think this is the goal.
The kind of stuff we want to do. And so with me, I have Dennis from Virgil. I'm David, and Dennis is heading up the development team at Virgil, and I'm heading up our product. And I'm going to jump right in the middle. We are the tech behind Twilio's encrypted messaging. That's how we got famous. Maybe that's how you heard about us. We are the tech behind Twilio's end-to-end encrypted chat and messaging. So this is not really a sales or marketing talk. This is really a webinar to get you started. But first, I'd like to explain the basics to make sure that it comes across what Virgil does and what our technology is good for. Here in this top page, or in this graph, you can see how apps are built and secured today. You have two people with two mobile devices exchanging messages or some data over the internet. This is the typical standard security today. They use HTTPS to upload data on the web server, and then the web server will be able to decrypt the data when the traffic terminates. The HTTPS traffic terminates on the server. We'll have access to the data. The web server will see everything that you uploaded, your chat message, your document, and then your database will also be able to decrypt or see all that data as it wishes. Even though you are using HTTPS and data at rest encryption in a database, pretty much all the keys are stored on the server, and your cloud service provider, yourself, or an attacker will be able to see all that data. And the problem with this architecture is that you don't have anything really to protect it beyond hoping your cloud service provider doing a good job. And if an accident happens, real data breaches out. So what is end-to-end encryption? End-to-end encryption starts in the same way. You have two people chatting or two people exchanging documents or some sort of data, but the data is encrypted on the mobile devices or in the browser. And it's the encrypted data that will go up to the server via HTTPS. And the web server and the database will never be able to decrypt that data because the key remains with the end users. So you as a developer won't be able to, sorry, I'm just ending the poll, forgot, sorry. You as a developer won't be able to see the data end-to-end encrypted this way, and also hackers, attackers, your cloud service provider, the government won't be able to see that data either if they peek into your database or onto your front-end server. So that's the gist. The end-to-end encryption happens on the client devices, and our SDKs help you encrypt data on the devices and also help you manage the keys between users and between devices in a way that your backend won't be able to decrypt or use those keys. So let me show you a real simple explanation of end-to-end encryption, and then we'll get into the details or get into how we get you guys started. So here is a very simple flow of when two users exchanging or a group of users exchanging chat messages. This is how it works. So we have a chat app here. Let's say that this is your app, and then we have in the equation we have a web front end in your cloud account, and you have a database. The front end will be taking and sending messages between the mobile apps, and the database will be storing those messages for historical reasons or just for queuing up until they're delivered. the way HTTPS works today is when you upload, when you send that web request, it goes up to your web server and then it terminates. So your web server now sees the data, and then your web server will write that data into your database, and then your database server will see the data again, and then there's this at-rest encryption key that's stored close to where the encrypted database file is, and it's used to encrypt the database contents, but that key is there sitting next to the database. That's how web applications are built and secured today. How is end-to-end encryption different? So with end-to-end encryption, we encrypt that message on the device or in the browser with a key. And then that encrypted message will go up to your web front end through HTTPS, and when it terminates, it's still encrypted because the web server doesn't get the key. You're keeping it with yourself. And then that message goes to the database, and then it's still encrypted. It remains like that. How does it work? We use a private public key combination. We call it, it's called a Symmetric Crypto, where public keys, the green key, are used to encrypt messages and private keys are used to decrypt messages. The green public key you give out to everybody in your app, all users, your public key, so they can use it to encrypt messages for you. And the pink key, the private key, you keep with yourself so that you can decrypt all the messages that arrive to you encrypted with the green public key. The green keys live in the cloud. They are publicly available. They are part of a service, what we call Virgil card service, so that when users message each other or users want to encrypt data to each other, Steve can download Maria's public key and encrypt data to her using her public key. Hope that it makes sense. So this is a really simple explanation of end-to-end encryption. And then you can go maybe one level deeper or one level more sophisticated and say, okay, but how can I share a chat session or a chat history with a group of people and then add new people to the chat history? And that's the next step. When you have your user private key on the device or in the browser, and you create a thread key. And this key will be used to encrypt and decrypt the thread, all messages in the thread. In fact, it's also private public key, so you will store the public equivalent of the thread key in the card service or in the cloud, maybe in your app, so that users will be able to use this green key, this public key, to encrypt every message in that thread. And this private key you share between the users who participate in the session. But the question is, how do you share a private key securely? And that's what we call secure key management. Simple. Let's say that, well, again, this whole conversation now is encrypted using this public key, and this is the thread private key that opens it up. The way you share it is, let's say that this conversation is between three parties, Steve, Mark, and Chris. When Chris typed up the first message in this conversation and created this chat conversation key or thread key, he will use these three users' public keys to encrypt that thread key. And that encrypted thread key, he'll distribute between the three users. I hope that makes sense. So this is how it looks like when Chris receives that encrypted private key that opens the whole chat thread. His user private key will open it up, and then that private key will decrypt every message in that thread. I hope I confused you enough. If any questions, please type it up. Okay, so these were really the basics of end-to-end encryption and how key management works and how we use these techniques in a simple chat applications. Now let's see some code and let me show you how you get started. If any questions, please type them up in the chat window. This is Virgil's website. I presume this is where you signed up. So when you sign up, this is how it starts. It starts with this Get Started page, which you can close and always come back to. It has 3 steps. The first step is to get a tutorial app. It's to get a Hello World app. And actually, we have a question in the chat window, so let me answer that first. Rebecca is asking, does it decrypt just messages in the future or all in the past too? Yes, Rebecca, thank you for the great question. Yes, so that key in the previous slide is decrypting all past communications. So if you add a new user at any point in time, she will be able to decrypt all messages in the past. Otherwise, if we encrypted messages with the user public keys, you would have to re-encrypt every message every single time when a new user is added. Thank you for the question. Okay, so back to my screen. This is how you get started with Virgil. This is a new tutorial that we just launched today. It's a special day today. It's 3 steps to get you started. If you have already signed up for Virgil, which I presume you already did, you can always go back and restart the tutorial. Now, one more thing. If you log into your Virgil account, you need to do a refresh in your browser if you have the previous web developer portal cached. I had to do a refresh this morning, even though it nicely loaded, the dashboard page nicely loaded. I had to do an explicit refresh to get the new tutorial. Okay, this is how you get started. So first, I need to get the tutorial app. I already have Node.js. Sorry, it's the street cleaning car near the office. Passing by. Bye-bye. So you get Node.js. I have Node.js. If you don't have Node.js on your laptop, get one here. The tutorial app will run on Node.js, and it's a very simple JavaScript app. The first step, once you have Node.js, is I'll simply download the repo. Here is the zip file. I just downloaded the repo. Maybe I can have a look. I just simply click on it, and here it is. Let me pull it closer to my browser. This is how the repo looks like. Thank you. This is how the repo looks like. Now, it's a really simple Node.js app, which I'll show you in a few minutes. Once you have the repo down with this button, the next step is to generate the config file that contains your app, your Virgil account credentials. So we compile that config file into all config data into one single file for you, so you don't have to copy paste lots of values and create tokens and passwords and stuff. This is sufficient for a demo account to have one single JSON file with everything in it. This is my demo account credentials here. So what I'm going to do, I have the JSON file that I just compiled, that my browser downloaded. All I'm going to do is just drop it here. And I go back, so I'll look at what is the next step. I run the application now, the Node.js application. all I have to do is start a terminal window. Terminal started. Let me just dock it to here. And now I need to log into my downloads folder and then into my encryption.js master. So I'm here, and now I have to run an npm install and an npm start. Thank you. And npm start. And now this Node Hello World server or app is now running on port 8888. So all I do is just click on this link, and now I've got it. So what I'll do next is I'm gonna launch one more of this. So I just hold down the command key and click on this one so that I have two windows here, and I'm going to undock this, and I'll create two separate windows for you guys to see the two windows side by side. Okay. So what I'll do first is I'll register two users. So I'll create a user called Alice5. Why not? I'll choose a very secure password for Alice5. Now these are users in your Virgil account. So remember in the presentation here, remember in this cloud, remember this cloud thingy here. When you register a user with this app, that user will be here. A public key for a user and some basic user profile data will be here in Virgil's card service for your account. And then you have a private key in the browser. Just a reminder. So Alice5 registers, okay? And then I would say Bob5, why not? Just for the sake of consistency. So now we have two users, Alice and Bob. I guess you never heard these names before. Now you do. And Alice here now can actually restart this. Oh, I need to sign in. Again, Alice5 with my super simple password. And now I can choose to encrypt a piece of text to Bob5. But let me not do that first. Let me try it and encrypt it for myself. Hello, Alice. So I'll just type this in here, click the encrypt button. This is how the encrypted data looks like. Text copied, thank you. And now if I want to decrypt it, I just copy and paste it here. Oh, actually paste it here. And I got the text back. So simple stuff, I encrypted a piece of text for myself. Now, what happens if I want to encrypt a piece of text for Bob? Again, I just type in his name here. Hello, Bob. What's up? And then encrypt it. Now remember here, my sample app looked up Bob in the cloud. So if I go back to my slides here, so Chris is encrypting for Maria, let's say Alice and Bob. So Chris looks up Maria's public key and will encrypt a piece of text with that. So that's exactly what's happening. We look up Bob5's public key in Virgil's cloud service. Here's a message and encrypted. Text copied. Now if I go back to Bob and I say, hey, I have read out a piece of text from a database, from my backend database. What is this? This is how it looks like. Now, just to summarize what happened, I can go up to Facebook or Instagram and publish this text to the whole world. And if Bob has visibility of my Facebook wall, he's the only person on earth who will be able to decrypt this. How cool is that? Okay, any questions so far? And I'll move on. And if you guys have any questions, type them up. Now, let us show you some code. Yeah, that's what I love in this demo. It's such a simple app. Technically, all you have to make it run is this HTML file. This is how the code looks like. Remember, everything happens on the client device, on the client side. Every encryption, decryption operation, key lookup, everything, it all comes from the client. So this app technically can operate as a simple HTML file if it has JavaScript code execution rights. This is the registration step. So when I signed up Alice and Bob, this is how I created their key, the user key. Remember, going back to the slides here, this is the key that we are talking about. So when we are going back to this very simple way of, yeah, this is the key that we are talking about. So each user has a user private key, and this is the key that we are creating here. And then in this line of code, we prepare the publishing of Chris's public key in a form of a Virgil card to Virgil's card service. Right, Dennis?
Right.
And then there is some verification that is happening in your backend to make sure that the card that you are submitting actually belongs to a real user. That's a verification that you guys would normally do as part of a user sign-up flow. And then once, when the user logs in, we load the key, which is stored and cached in a browser. We are soon launching a new feature where you guys can back that private key up to our cloud, encrypted using the user's password securely. So bear with us and use that feature when it comes out soon. But long story short, here we expect at login time that the user's key is on the device, and so we just load that. And then this is how where we encrypt Hello World text. We load the recipients, the list of recipients. The user picks the recipient, and here we get the card of Bob. If I want to encrypt to Bob, and then I encrypt the message to Bob. We use the encrypt for multiple because Virgil has this really funky technology where you can add multiple users to the list of recipients. So for example, if I take this piece of data here and I try to decrypt it myself, I can't because it's been encrypted only for Bob, right? So I have to encrypt it for myself to say, hello, Bob. I'll just decrypt it with Bob. Hello, Bob. And then I can decrypt it myself as well as Alice. If it's a chat history, then you need to encrypt the chat messages so that all users are able to see it. So that's what the encrypt for multiple function is for. You can encrypt for multiple cards, multiple users. And then I'm looking for the decrypt part. So you decrypt the ciphertext. All you need for the decrypt function is one parameter, the encrypted text, the ciphertext. So we decode it and then we decrypt a message, and that's it. Any questions so far? Oh, there is a question from Rebecca. Dennis, what's your role at Virgil?
I'm development lead at Virgil. So yeah, I'm leading the development process.
Cool. There is one more thing I wanted to show you. I presume that most of you are already on Slack. If you are not, then definitely sign up and ask us questions there. This is my email address, and you can always find me at Slack. I'm Dave at Slack. Always very happy to chat with you about your app, answer any questions. If you have feedback, please also let us know. If you are looking for an SDK, a framework, a language that you don't find on our website, please also let us know. We'd love to help you get going. We have lots of samples on GitHub. If you have a requirement of building a chat app or securing your documents or user profiles using end-to-end encryption, you will most probably find the sample app that helps you get started. But if you don't, always ask us in chat. That was our plan for today. Thank you, Dennis, for helping me out on the first onboarding party. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And let us know if you have any questions on Slack. Bye.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.